الحمد لله الذي بدأ خلق الإنسان بقوله كن فكان وفضل بعضهم على بعض بما منحهم من أخلاق حسان حتى صار بعضهم سماء والأخرى أرضاه وكل بقسمته يحمد ويرضى خلق آدم بيد قدرته وأجرى المقادير عليه وعلى ولده بحكمته فجعل منهم الخادم والمخدوم والحاكم والمحكوم وخص بالنبوة بعض أولاد نوح عليه السلام وكتب الاسترقاق على بعض منهم يسألون مزيد المزايا العظام فأحكامه تجري على وفق المراد لا معقب لحكمه ولا راد لكنه قد يمن على بعض الموالي بشرف يصيرون به من الموالي كما شرف طائفة من الحبشان بالسعادة والسيادة والإيمان كالحكيم لقمان وبلال وشقران والنجاشي ومهجأ وغيرهم ممن آمن واتبع وصاروا من الصحابة والتابعين والصالحين بل صاروا في الدارين سادة وهداة للأنام وقادة أحمده حمدا لا يحد وأشكره شكرا لا بعد والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأخيار وخلاصة الأبرار الذي تظلل بالغمامة وتتوج بالكرامة وأذن بين يديه بلال بن حمامة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده وجيش الجيوش وكان في حزبه يوم أحد 40 من الحبوش وعلى آله وأصحابه وخدمه وأتباعه وسلم آمين. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for taking your time to attend this event on such a sensitive topic. I'd like to thank Brother Bilal, Darren, Dawood, Ridwan, Dr. Mustafa Sheikh for arranging this event. So what I started off with was Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. In fact, the writing here is actually not a gimmick from Wakanda or Wakanda law. It is Arabic here, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the South Arabian script, the script that's related to the area that we're looking at, which is Yemen, parts of Oman as well, and obviously Habash, Abyssinia. So Wakanda, why we chose this topic of Afro-Futurism. Futurism is a way of dreaming. So Wakanda caused a stir back in its release, with the Black Panther. It inspired hope for many of us and was actually an affront to others. A fictitious superhero triggers racists. Right? They ask why we need a black superhero when superheroes are traditionally white. Right? And when the storyline is complicated and layered, i.e. the superhero may be a tragic conformist and the anti-hero a revolutionary. Well, it sounds good, but it's not marketable. People won't buy into a black superhero and won't make any money. And then Wakanda delivered them $1 billion mark. So all of this is down to something, right? Which is the perpetual black pessimism that white supremacy has imposed upon us, that blacks can never succeed. The land of riches, Africa, is ignored and has to be constantly framed as dependent on the benevolence of the white man and his religion as well. Christianity will shine light there. And that African, as a result, has no history. Which brings me to the erasing of African agency, and in particular, Black Muslim autonomy. The stories of the Zanj, the Fula, and the Shidis. The need to erase this history is to fit in with white supremacy through its pseudoscientific and also religious epistemes of deficiency and cursedness, lanat. So the lot of the black man was servitude to others as they claimed. This is the way how the black experience itself is portrayed. So if Wakanda, a fictitious land and peoples illustrating the possibility of black autonomy, offends the imagination, then what about real historical King Charles, like the Black Panther, and anti-heroes like Killmongers we find in the land where our own species, human beings, emerged? So this presentation is a homage to the efforts of our African forefathers in both the motherland Africa, Asia, and also the New World, who understood man's ignorance towards fellow man, which is evident even throughout the golden ages of Islam, Right. So the brothers at the beginning, they spoke about their conversion into Islam and then being told you're at the bottom of the food chain, where Dawood, in his words. So they chronicled inequalities, our forefathers, and addressed them in their writings. Much of this came in the form of what our very own Dr. Harun Bashir describes as black excellence literature. The works of Al-Jahiz, Fakhr Sudan al-Bidan, if you like, the virtue of black people over white. Abdurrahman ibn al-Jawzi, Tanwir al-Ghabash, illuminating twilight, fi fada'il al-Habash, in the virtues of the Abyssinians. And Imam Jalaluddin al-Suyuti as well, Raf al-Sha'n al-Hubshan, raising the affair of the Abyssinians. And even Mawla Afandi, one of the first African Shaykh al-Islams of the Ottomans, which is Rafi Shane Hubshan as well, same name as Imam Suyuti's book. And the khutbah that I just read was by Imam Muhammad al-Baqi al-Bukhari, so someone from Uzbekistan writing on this topic, Tiraz al-Manqush on the Habush. So we see vestiges of these teachings. So this type of black consciousness, black confidence in the Mali revolt in the 19th century. The Bilalians, this was a group of Muslims in the Americas before actually the rise or the advent of the Nation of Islam. And then most prominently in the thought of Brother Minister Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. So in essence, this is the story of establishment and vice regency on God's earth in political Muslim political discourse. Al-istikhlaf wa tamkin fi ardillah. So it's about Muslim autonomy and also political blackness. Summed up in the words of Khalid ibn Walid, جئنا لنخرجكم من عبادة العباد إلى عبادة رب العباد. We've come to liberate you from the servitude of servants to the servitude of the Lord of servants. So with this, the first preliminary remarks I'll make, just like in the old days, the scholars used to say, سألني بعض الأصدقاء أن أؤلف لهم رسالة في. Similarly, like my friends Bilal and Dawood and others, I've been requested by friends who identify themselves as black Muslims to share some of this knowledge. Right. So, what is it we want to cover? So, Islam, blackness, and also the momentum Black Lives Matter. Right, what is blackness? So I want to gauge some of the following issues. Blackness, both on an ethnic, as an ethnicity as well, but also its political ramifications. The term black itself is contested. Right? It is not always phenotypical. Darkness itself, look, you can have someone who's Indo-Aryan, but probably more darker than someone who's from Africa. In Arabic, the terms aswad, black, asmar, brown, and ahmar, red, are used interchangeably for the people of the Arabian Peninsula. Right? Anti-blackness as well that we find in, if you like, the Islamicate cultures. So the Zanj and the Shidi, right? This type of the use of these terms as well, both in terms of pejoratively and also in terms of empowerment. And then moments in Islamic history of what the French movement in the 1920s, negritude or black consciousness. So we'll explore this, these types of words as well in Arabic and Sanskritic languages. Right. Also, hopefully, it'll raise our awareness on the racialized nature of hatred itself. Right. Most forms of bigotry and the racialized nature of Islamophobia. Look, in the West, in Britain, a Muslim usually is Pakistani. In Germany, usually it's a Turk. In France, it's usually an Algerian or a Moroccan. And in America, it's largely African Americans, right? So, right. Also, through this, look, we'll appreciate intersectionality. The Prophet ﷺ actually, the nasab, your fathers, don't deny your own lineage. Look, I'm Bengali, and each of us should be able to celebrate our heritage as well. There's times where we could be Muslim first, or we could be our ethnicities first, or where our nationality lies, right? Which countries are, is where we live, and other issues as well in terms of gender and other topics. Negating the notion of perpetual black pessimism. I mean, this is something which has been imposed on us, right? And eugenics as a result of that. The way how black in anthropology, it comes from a certain tradition of looking at the world. Something I want to entertain is that the notion of black prophets. We, in every nation, we sent a messenger. And well, if you speak against blackness, my internet is unstable. Okay. ومن آياته أن خلقكم من تراب, that from his signs is that he created all of you from dust. And if you mock the signs of Allah, so that's from his signs, how he created us, different colors and tongues as well, and languages, then it's blasphemous. And we, as a community, we take the sensitivity of our prophets is something that is in our kalam. There's also moments of black contribution and resistance in Islamicate memory. So it's not just looking at who is black, but what blackness meant as well in the past. Understanding xenophobia within the Ummah and what I'd say is borrowed racism. Racism, unsuriya, I mean, what is xenophobia is what we understand as asabiya. But racism is invented by European colonialism. The idea of race itself, we were not really races, we were tribes. So even if I mean, the color of our skin is not necessarily races as such, right? You can have one peoples who have very different phenotypical colors. Islamophobia and the civil rights movement, this is something we should understand as within the broader rubric of al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. We ourselves command to good and forbid the evil, and we ought to support the black struggle because we are part of it. Right? Our forefathers who came into this country, all of us were subsumed as black at one point, and even in the 1980s as well, where the Asian movement, Asian youth movement as well, was still part of what we termed as political blackness. One other thing that I want to look at is the idea of the black savior. Right? Is that possible as well? Right. So the black superhero that's there in fiction, but also what about in Islamic memory? The idea of a black savior, someone coming and actually delivering the ummah, right? Like Najiullah Musa, like Moses. So Islam can be an ethnicity, right? And that ethnicity doesn't really need to be one ethnicity. Significant different ethnicities, especially in terms of the power dynamic. At the moment, it's not white, even if we've got white Muslims, right? The power dynamic wise, it's the mustadifuna fil ard. That's all of us who are non-white. Ideology and also signified to where the ummah resides. So what is it we're trying to understand from today's lecture is what was traditional xenophobia. Human beings are sometimes averse to that which they don't know. Right? But then racism is one of the bid'ahs of our, greatest bid'ahs of our time. Right? I mean, we should be focusing on these type of bid'ahs, ideological bid'ahs, rather than the cultural bid'ahs that we constantly on the mimbars we're talking about, issues pertaining to ibadat or devotional acts. And then we should also in our madaris, in our madrasas, from West Africa to Malaysia, and then all the way to Central Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa as well, is looking at race theory as a way of empowering ourselves as well and understanding our past. I mean, this is something Sayyidina Abu Bakr and others, one of the first sciences they taught was genealogy. And in our times, critical race theory is integral to understanding genealogy and ethnicity. Right? So, one of the key themes I want to talk about or share with you is the idea of, in Islam, of black masters, right? The idea of Amir, the idea of a caliph or an imam. So we see authority in Islam. In the Quran, it mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Obey Allah and obey His Messenger, and those of you who are in authority. And if you differ, then refer it back to Allah and His Messenger. Obviously, the Prophet is no longer with us, but in his teachings, through the teachings of his companions and others, and his heirs. In another hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, follow my tradition, alaykum bi sunnati wa sunnatil khulafa ar-rashidin, follow my tradition and the tradition of my rightly guided successors. And the word caliph is used here. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, also said, al-a'immatu min Quraysh, the imams are from Quraysh. And lastly, is one which resonates in Islamic history, and also a bit of a caveat I'll mention in terms of this is one which is offensive, and I'll explain how many hadith scholars look at this. Alaykum bi ita'at al-amir wa in ta'ammara alaykum abdun habshiyun, and this also what I've put in red is what many hadith scholars will say is mudraj, what other narrators have put in, which is not really from either the words of the Prophet or the subsequent narrators of the hadith. Mudrajat, sometimes they call it ziyadat, of authorities. So sometimes additions are put into this. This is something which doesn't befit our messenger, because this is the same messenger that says to Aisha, don't call someone short, right? And for him to describe people that he told his followers, go to Abyssinia, and this is what he'd say. Anyway, let's look at this hadith because it's used by a group of Muslims. So authority, right? The way how Muslims, if you like, this is the first Islamic political philosophy, if you like. So Ibadis, they're the earliest Muslims, or the Khawarij, they call it the Shiat al-Khawarij. They were all called Shias. All Muslims at one point were Shia, because Shiat Muawiyah, Shiat Ali, and Shiat al-Khawarij. So the faction of the Kharijites, the faction of Ali, Shiat Ali, and Shiat Muawiyah are those who were Muawiyah's faction. So in Shia political philosophy, the concept is the imamat, and there's 12 in the Jafari tradition, the last being Imam Mahdi, near the end of time. In the Sunni tradition, where they succeed the Prophet, and you have many caliphates throughout Islamic history. And then with the Ibadis, the concept of the emirate, al-amir, and that's why you can understand why that region, if you like, Oman, the emirates there as well. There's also sultanates, that's a little later, but these are the early ones, right? Because the words of the hadith have this emirate, imamat, and caliphate. And so what do we find as well is who gets to be the imams is the Hashemites, the Prophet's family. And in the Sunni tradition, early Sunni tradition, the Qurayshites, so anyone from Quraysh. And then in the Ibadi tradition, any Muslim, right? Wallahu Abdun Habashiyan. This was actually the shi'ar, if you like, the emblem or the motto of many of the movements within Islam in the early days. Pejoratively, Sunnis could be termed as Nasibites by rival by Shias. The Shias are termed by Sunnis as Rafidites. They reject Abu Bakr and Umar. And then the Khawarij, they're the ones, the secessionists, they're the ones who walked out on both groups. But the key thing is this, that there are three companions who epitomize this type of political philosophy. So for the Sunnis, if you like, is type of politics. Sunnis became a bit more quietist, the Umayyads. Now it's called Red Shiism after the revolution, and then the Kharijites have always been more or less egalitarian. Right, so Sayyidina Abu Bakr, for the Sunnis, if you like, this is, you can't really be a Sunni without Abu Bakr as being the most virtuous. In the Shia tradition, Imam Ali, and really the Khawarij did call the Abdun Habashi was Bilal, right? And later on, we can see in the Mali revolt, there was actually a Catholic, Pacifico Lucatan, I think his name was, and he called himself Bilal. So this was a Catholic who called himself Bilal. The symbolism of Bilal is even beyond the Muslim tradition itself. Right. So the idea of the black masters has always been there, and two of these companions have been described as phenotypical blackness. Right. So Bilal and Ali. I'm not sure about Abu Bakr, Dawood, or any of you. You can correct me on this. But at least the two of these three symbols are ethnically. They're described as black. Right? Moving on to, right, one of those. Why is it then in Islam we're seeing this type of racism, particular racism towards people of darker hues? The term Negro itself, so I'm addressing this with the utmost sensitivity, is actually from Spanish and Portuguese. And then obviously the offensive, diminutive, the N-word, as we all know, is what is it? Why would someone do that? Is for the infantilization of black men. They're boys to white folk, or racist white folk for that matter. And we know the offense that this N-word causes, but it's cognate to Negro, too, has to be dissected. It is offensive. We don't use that word anymore. And so why have I chosen that? First of all, so the term Negro for black, why do they use that? When we've already got a word for blackness, black, right? We simply, simply, this is to make black foreign, right? White is always native. And when it becomes difficult to argue that white is native, then they call themselves nativists. So in all the continents, in the Sioux Native Americans, they're natives, and then white people are nativists. The Nguni or the Zulus of South Africa also are the natives, but then the Boer become the nativists. And our own progeny, the Australians, become the Aborigines are natives, and then white Anglo-Saxons there are nativists. So the point is that black adulterates white space, and this also includes in religion, right? And we've seen this with previously with birtherism. To actually quote one of my students, Shaheen Katiparamobil, what do we see with birtherism? That the man doesn't even belong in America, right? Barack Obama, and even if he's Christian, he's still a Muslim. I mean, even Reverend Sharpton or Jesse Jackson, because of hundreds of years of slavery, right? They would actually even not welcome black people as their fellow Christians in, if you like, the white supremacist world. So in a similar way, the words aswad in Arabic and kala in Urdu, Hindi, Bangla, we couldn't exoticize blackness. So then we invent terms, the Zanj and Shidi as well, for Habashi peoples, or Zangistanis, right? Not all the Zanj were actually black. Many of them were Arabs as well, Arab slaves, right? This is, a phenomenon as well that we ignore, that they were Arabs who were put into slavery. Right. So where does this come from? So why have I used this word, negrophobia itself, right? When anti-blackness is just good old-fashioned racism. Look, I could have just said racism, right? But well, if anti-Semitism is racism against Jews and Islamophobia is racism towards Muslims, then why is the most palpable form of racism, i.e. that towards blacks, just racism, when we know black people have been racialized in very particular ways? And my experience of racism as a South Asian is very different to, say, Darren or Simon, that will be that. And these brothers can tell you firsthand of anti-blackness within Islamicate cultures, growing up as Muslims, if you like, in our communities. And conversion itself to Islam didn't immunize them from our own N-words, if you like, Zanji and Shidi. But those terms as well, we want to look at how they are terms of empowerment as well. So where did this all begin in the ummatic sense, the idea of anti-blackness? Well, really a lot of it is from the curse of Ham. First of all, the curse of Ham from the Israelite traditions or the biblical traditions that are there in our tafsir works, where Ham, one of the sons of, and in fact, a lot of the anthropology of the 19th century becomes this biblical approach to humanity. The children of Ham, the children of Shem, and the children of Yafet. And then they just divide up the world into Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Negroid. But there's also Abyssinian tropes as well. Right? So in the Quran it says, Allah, Qulillahumma malikul mulk, Lord, the owner of the dominion. Tu'til mulka man tasha, wa tu'izzu man tasha, wa tazillu man tasha. You give you give dominion to whoever you want, you raise whoever you want, and you debase whoever you want. And that's true of every qawm in Islamic history as well, that they've had these moments, right? And also this, why this curse of Ham, and also the Abyssinian tropes. And we want to understand why the Habash, people who gave sanctuary to Islam, that we've victimized them. I'm talking in Islamic history. La taziru wazitun wizra ukhra, that goes against the Quran, the idea of the curse of Ham, that, in fact, as we understand, Ham did something good. He tried to cover his father who was naked, and he's drunk, right? Why would God curse him for doing something which is good? Anyway, moving on. The Abyssinians, and this is something we forget, why is it there's a lot of this, is because of how we understand the history of Abyssinians towards Arabia. So the chapter of 105, Surah Al-Fil, when Abraha came to actually destroy the Kaaba, Abraha was an emperor. And really, what could the Arabians do other than just pray to Allah that their homes are not destroyed? And it's something they didn't even pass on to the next generation because of the shame they hid in their houses. It's only because the Quran says this. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Have you seen how your Lord dealt with those who came in the elephants? There's also about Ahlul Kitab. So the Ahlul Kitab are personified really by the Negus, Najashi of Abyssinia. He gives sanctuary to two groups of Muslims, two asylum seekers, if you like, right? Migration is part of the Muslim tradition, right? Exodus, if you like, in the Jewish tradition. And the Prophet said this is a hadith tradition that they kept. Da'al ahbash ma lam yad'ukum, right? Or utrukul ahbash ma tarakukum, right? Let the Abyssinians be if they let you be. In other words, if they don't attack you, don't attack them. This is in the hadith. So we have to understand why the Abyssinians, what was it about? We have to understand they were the rivals to the Arabs, if you like, racial rivals. So the Abyssinians had influence over where Yemen, Oman, Somalia, Sudan, Tanzania. Basically, they surrounded at least southern Arabia. And obviously, they tried to conquer Arabia as well. So there's some of those Jahili this is where the first time where plantation slavery fails in Islam, and it could and there was a revolt in the Zangistan portion of you can say Iran and Iraq today. Many of them were black. That they brought them from Africa and other places as well. Many of them were Persian as well, right? And some of them were actually even Arabs. And they're revolting against the Abbasids at the time, and they established their own, if you like, Freetown, Madinatul Mukhtara, right? To use Fanon's terms, these were the wretched of the earth, right? And they challenged the caliph for about 16 years. The Sahib al-Zanj, very much inspired by Bilal committing dominicide in the sense, the master, this idea of emancipation is not just given, right? It has to be taken. So the Zanj, then the word Zanji itself, or Zanji in Egyptian, has that type of pejorativeness of the N-word that it does in English. And also these peoples, the Zanjis, were actually stigmatized as Khawarij, even though they freed the slaves and the love for the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet's family. Just to quote Dr. Sheikh Mustafa Sheikh, who spoke at the beginning, this is an article in Work in Progress that he's looking at, is what did Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Muhammad do? He was raising the work conditions of the slaves first, and then eventually led to revolution. And so Ali ibn Muhammad is someone who claimed to be from the Prophet's lineage, and he was black. And we want to understand as well what happened to the Ahlul Bayt in terms of their lineage. You have Ahlul Bayt in India as well as in Africa. I actually met Ahlul Bayt, Sheikh Ahmad al-Fatih al-Garibullah. He's a Sayyid, he's a descendant of the Prophet, and he's Sudanese. And so what happened is to understand the color of slavery. Does slavery have a color in Islam? Well, we know that the Mamluks, I'm arguing that they're Caucasians, but they're not, the Turks. The Mughals, many of them were Indo-Aryan, some of them were Dravidians, right? Some of them were slave princes like Malik Ambar. and they became emperors, many of them, right? So, and also standards of beauty, all of these things we see in the books of Ibn Battuta and many of the others is just subjective, right? And what we see as well in Islamic history is well, black pirates, like many of them Berbers and others, or Amazigh, they were enslaving Saxons here from these shores of Portsmouth and elsewhere. And Malik Ambar, if you want to understand why there's an anti-blackness in it, is because of Malik Ambar was a Habashi who ruled parts of the Deccan and Gujarat, and there was actually they ruled in Bengal as well. The Habashis ruled there, and he challenged Emperor Jahangir and defeated him on many different battlefields. So blackness and the believers. How do we understand this? Right. So Bilal was amongst some of the most closest of the Prophet's family, like Salman al-Farsi and others. And you can say Bilal made his way into the Quran in the sense of there's some verses that allude to Asbab al-Nuzul or context of revelation of Bilal. And I've got here in of Ethiopia. We have some indication that the Prophet used to ask Bilal for these words. And the word he said when he was being tortured was Ahad, Ahad. And this is what that word is in Ge'ez. Ahadu, Ahadu. In Hebrew, Ahad, and obviously Ahad. Otherwise, Arabic is Innama ilahukum ilahum wahid. Right? Adam, what does Adam mean? Adam in Hebrew and Adam in Arabic is black dust. And also Tinun Lazib. Also in Arabic, those of you who are Arabists, Adhamul Layl is when the night has darkened. So it's to do with darkness, Adam. And then Tihama. If any of you the names of the Prophet, the 205, I think, names of the Prophet, if I'm wrong, this guys correct me. One of the names is Zamzamiyat Tihami. The Prophet is from a certain region called Tihama. Ali and the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, about 6 of them, from my reading, and I could be wrong, is they are described as Shadid al-Sawad, extremely black, and sometimes Shadid al-Sumra as well, extremely brown. Even Bilal sometimes is described as Asmar instead of Aswad. Right, so Tihama, this is where Tihama is, Makkah and Medina, going all the way down to Yemen. We know that the Prophet's ancestors were from Yemen, right? And it also corresponds to the Nubian part of Egypt, going all the way down to Sudan and Abyssinia. So it's that region as well. And this is taken in the 40s, the Tihama peoples. This is the closest we'll get to really to knowing what the original color of the peoples of the Prophet and the people of Makkah and Medina were at the time. So there you have that, right? And so why is there this people get offended if they say, well, Imam Ali was black, or even entertaining what the color of the Prophet was. We do realize that the Prophet's color was anywhere between Aswad, Asmar, and Ahmar. Tirmidhi in the Shamail Tirmidhi argues this, but Yamilu ila al-Biyad is a little bit lighter complexion, but those are the complexions of the Arabs of the time. And let's look at somebody else, our mother, Hagar, right? Ali Shariati in his book on the Hajj speaks about this. Look, Allah constantly, when we do our tawaf, somebody we ignored, right? Hajar alayhi salam, right? The concubine, for all the different intersectional, on all different forms of intersectionality, she was ignored. Yet the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to commemorate her when they do the tawaf, right? So what is this? What we're looking at here? Arabic, Syriac, and Ge'ez closer than Hebrew and Aramaic, if you like. And then from this, we're looking at Jesus's Jewishness is erased, at least after the Renaissance. And because we tend not to draw the Prophet's Arabness is obscured in a way, right? So we're sort of left with our own imaginations. You can picture the Prophet however you want. If you're from Africa, well, you'd see the Prophet like your father, even though Allah says don't. Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadin min rijalikum. So it's iconoclastic. That's the reason why we don't have pictures of the Prophet. Is we can't in our minds the Prophet should be like our forefathers. So Abraham's children are Abyssinia. Look, you got the Beta Israel, right? The Karaites, Orthodox Tawahid, the Christians, and then obviously Muslim migrants. And then going back to that, look, don't conquer Abyssinia. If they don't attack you, don't attack them. And there you have it. Ethiopia survived Islamic expansion as a result of this. Istawsaw bil ahbashi khairan. Look after the Abyssinians. Istawsaw bil aqbati, also the Copts as well. Right. So moving on to Black consciousness or negritude. So Black consciousness within Islam. So this is a framework of critique and literary theory by Black Francophone scholars, intellectuals, beginning with Césaire, Damas, Fanon, possibly even with Patrice Lumumba. And it includes those of you from America, you've mentioned this, is the Black is Beautiful movement. And it also means, in a sense, of owning the terms. So the terms Negro as well, can it be owned by the terms, our own terms of Aswad, Habashis, Zanj, can we actually empower ourselves with this? And I'm saying we are Black Muslims. Now, what we have here is in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Why should you not feel Black is beautiful? Or what Iqbal said about Khudi ko kar itna buland, that you raise yourself to such an extent that Khuda aakar pooche, "Ae mera banda, bata tera raisa kya," that God himself will come to you and say, "My servant, tell me what your command is." And in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, we've ennobled the children of Adam. All of us, honor is intrinsic in us. Also, we create new tribes and nations that you may know one another. And then from his side, from his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth and your color and your languages. If you make fun of languages and colors, right, then it's kufr, because you're denying Allah's omnipotence. Yeah? And it is kufr of the highest order. It's not just kufran and ni'mah, as some people want to relegate it to. And also, the fact that denial of your lineage, look, you don't claim somebody as your father who's not, right? If you are, whoever your father is, you claim them. And denial of lineage is kufr, right? And this is that self-love, right? So Allah and His messengers here, who's with us as well. So what happens? When did this emerge, this type of thing? Arabocentrism inspires the Shu'ubiyya movement. So in the early days, in the Umayyads, and they were tyrants, jizya was forced on converts. And then the non-Arabs had to fight this type of Jahili social order. And also, just to use Al-Juday's Tahrir fi Ilm al-Hadith, there's actually, he does mention this, but no critique of how we deal with this stuff. He says, look, many of the things that pertain to racism, this is most likely could be fabricated. But how do we do this? This is something where, amongst yourselves, we can think about this. You created him from dust, and you created me from fire. Well, Shaitan is the first, this is his bid'ah. And racism is antithetical to the prophetic vocation. Now, Black agency in the Ummah. So this is something Dr. Harun Bashir just recently did a book on, his article on the curse of Ham. But a type of literature there in our memory is Black excellence. So we can see this by, many of it's penned by Black, Arab, Turk, and also Uzbek sheikhs, right? Far afield, talking about Arab anti-Blackness. Majority of the companions and sages of the Ummah were from the Mawali, freed slaves. Not all of them were Black. And then the significance of Bilal, I mentioned this, and African struggle, and Shaheed al-Islam Malcolm X. So this is something we ought to recognize. Blackness is part of the historical identity of Islam, very much in the Shidis in India. The word Shidi itself actually comes from Sayyid. They were captains, they were in the military. And if Islam is the antidote to racism, then speaking about Black contribution, it shouldn't trigger them as children, right? Bilal has always been the symbol of the marginalized and decolonial struggles. and the minorities, especially the Ibadis. And I'm speaking as a someone who's studied the Sunni tradition as well. Ibadi and Shia understood this very well. And it's sad that some Muslims are just sick of hearing Bilal's name. They just think Bilal is just some sort of token, some platitude that we just bring up every time we talk about race. No, when we talk about revolution, you have to talk about Bilal. Yep. So the last section of this lecture is the Fula spirit. So we looked at revolutionary, but we also want to look at those who established Deen on the land, if you like, right? The successors, the inheritors of the earth, the righteous inherit the earth, or the meek shall inherit the earth, the Fula, and also the concept of decoloniality and how we fight against injustices. Well, it says in the Quran, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم. So Allah has promised that those who believe amongst you and do righteous deeds, that He will give them vice-regency on this earth and also give them power. So Africa, and I've actually left some of this out. I've only focused on 9. The Messina, the Fula, they're sometimes called the Fula Jihad states, or the Messina, Deen of Messina, in Nigeria, or that part of Mali, southern Mali. And then the Malian Empire, one of the most richest human beings ever, Mansa Musa was from there. And the Songhai Empire, some of the emperors, these are emperors, black emperors, who Kitabullah wa Sunnati Rasulullah, they established on this land, right? It's a much more bigger region as well. Kanem Borno in Central Africa, going towards Central African Republic now. The Sokoto Empire of Sheikh Usman Danfodio, which is a Khilafat. The Adal Sultanate in East Africa, the Ajuran Empire as well. And then the Mogadishu, which is Somalia, and then the Kilwa Sultanate, which went all the way down Tanzania and Kenya, right? And many of them were Ibadis, so different sectarian traditions as well. So I left out the Sudan and Egypt as well, because they're Arab, particularly Arab in that sense. I tried to focus on those who are ethnically considered African, and the most populous group were the Fula, right? So even ulama of Darfur as well, they're Fula peoples. So this, what we're looking at, look, there was never really a mass race in Islam, right? I mean, even the Arabs were enslaved. There were, in Zangistan, there were Arab slaves. Many of them were Mawali too. Everyone was represented throughout Islamic history. The Fula, the Berbers, the Persians, the Turks, the Indians. They, so many different. It wasn't one ethnicity being masters of the rest of us. So Black Muslim autonomy is possible because God is not human and Muhammad is not depicted. So we don't have a picture of the Prophet, and neither do we say God is white or any color for that matter. And erasing Black agency and restricting history to the Umayyads, Ottomans, is really pseudoscientific. And what it is what many Black radicals have argued, is that this whole Homo Africanus myth based on the curse of Ham, and that this is for perpetual slavery, to make Black people a permanent underclass. And what about in Islamic history? The possibility of a Black Mahdi. Al-izzatu lillahi wa li rasulihi wa lil mu'minin. Izzat, dignity, is God's, His messengers, and the believers. And the Mahdi of the Sudan, and this is someone really to consider. The Mahdi of Sudan was someone who was not defeated on the battlefield, and he did not reify. He didn't give reality to these perceived racial hierarchies. This idea of being at the bottom. He destroyed them. Look, he vanquished the Turks. He said, look, the Turks are not establishing Allah's laws. The Arabs as well, right? So the Egyptians are also, the master race, the British at that time, the white Europeans. And this movement was even celebrated by the Egyptian Azharis. You had Imam Jamaluddin Afghani and others. Actually, they were accused of, why don't you just take over, please? This could spread in other parts of Arabia. So to go back to the whole idea of the emirate, if you like, Malcolm, in the words of Alex Haley, Malcolm, our shining black prince, Amir. And look, political Islam and civil rights movement look closely linked. Right? Afghani and the Mahdi. So Afro-pessimism, the opposite of that, where Africa, unfortunately, is going to stay the way it is also a product of white supremacy. There's no history, right? Why do we hear about these great emperors? Yeah, we just want to fast track the whole history and you say, no, you had some Arab, well, you Arabs were more racist than us. You gave us these slaves and we took those slaves over. That wasn't the history of Muslim Africa. They were emperors, yeah, and once were kings, as you like. So black activism will continuously invoke the Zanj revolution and the Fula struggle. And just something for you to think about, and coming to the end of my presentation, to what extent anything decolonial, if it doesn't challenge the legitimacy of the system. Afdalu jihad in kalimati haqqin in the sultan jihad. The best form of struggle is speaking truth, not to an unjust ruler, but unjust rule itself. Sultan is a masdar, it's a verbal noun. It doesn't have to be a fa'il, if you like, ism fa'il, an active participle. Right. So to conclude, we as an ummah are part of the black struggle and should align ourselves with anti-racist movements, if you like, the helpful fudul of our times. If the Prophet was alive, he would be with these anti-racist movements. Arabic is an Afro-Asiatic language. We talk about it being Semitic, that's fine, but it's still part of the broader African and Asian languages. Blackness is integral to the nascent and enduring identity of Muslims. Arab, Fula, Zanj, Shidi, Habashi is all part of that. Our history shows that all children of the Ummah gained izzat, gained dignity in the lands, and dhillat, and humiliation by the leave of Allah. Right? Our Prophet is the descendant of a Nubian maid, our mother Hajar. The Imams of the Ahlul Bayt have characteristics of the Habash. We are Ishmaelites. We should show our filial piety towards our elders, Bilal, Ali ibn Muhammad, Usman Dan Fodio, Malik Ambar, the Mahdi, and Shaheed al-Islam Malcolm X. May Allah be pleased with all of them. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for your attention. And with that, I end my talk.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dr. Taj al-Islam. I'm going to open up shortly for questions, but before we give you pass on questions to you, Taj, can you hear me, Taj? Can I just check? You can hear me. Before we do that, I just want to allow our guests who actually requested presentation, this talk, to perhaps give their to kind of respond to the talk or provide their reflections. I think that this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you all. So Abdul Karim, Bilal, Dawood, sort of engaging you as respondents now, and then we can open up for questions from the wider audience.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Abdul Karim.
So, one of the things I would like to understand is like within the Islamic dynasties that have come, why is there a need to keep the blacks at the bottom? Why is there? Where did this come from?
Taj, did you receive that?
No, I did receive that, but this is, again, it's a misrepresentation of history that we think that these guys were not at the bottom, right? They were, look at Muhammad al-Mahdi of Sudan, Usman Dan Fodio, many of these, I remember I only got 9 of them. I understand. Roughly be about 40.
I understand that. And for us who seek information, for us who seek knowledge, we can dissect that. But if you just look at mainstream Islamic programming. These are not like, you know, you will hear the stories of the Abbasids. I mean, okay, we know that the Umayyads had an ethnicity within, but you have to seek it out. It's not it. Otherwise, even what you've told us today, this is not mainstream information. This is what you have to seek out. So I'm asking, like, why is there a need to seek out?
Sorry, why is there a need to speak out, you say?
No, to seek this.
To seek this stuff, yeah. Well,
yeah.
the thing is, this is, look, Allah says in the Quran, right? Inna alladhina yaktumuna ma anzalallahu min al-bayyinat ulaika yal'anuhumullahu yal'anuhumullah. So those who conceal what we've revealed from the knowledge, Allah's lanat, Allah's curse is on them. So the fact that we haven't taught ourselves this stuff is a shame. Look, when we speak about Islamic history and Islamic knowledge, Mali still got some of the heritage that was lost in Spain. A lot of that, those books on astronomy and other sciences and music as well, and those things as well, are there in Mali. What I'd say is that, look, the thing is, this is we have to change the way how history is taught as well. So even in our madrasas in the subcontinent, you do get racist type of writings as well. Where does this come from? Again, it comes from the history of the land. So Malik Ambar challenges Emperor Jahangir, and Jahangir can't do anything about it, right? So what does he do? Okay, let's do what the Quran says don't do. La tanabazu bil alqab, don't call each other nicknames and pick on each other. That's the sort of stuff they resort to. In terms of, is the obligation, in a sense, is upon the Tulab al-Ilm, the ulama class of peoples, to really incorporate this sort of stuff. If we don't know who we are, if we don't know our history, then we will be lost. Everyone's always afraid of being lost in dalal and misguidance and error. So that's, in short, that's how I could understand this. But look, empowerment, what you just said there, look, we just need to continuously teach our history. It's our history. Look, those of you who are Hanafi, Imam Zaylai was Habashi. So many, we only think of Hanafis from Turkey, in the Indian subcontinent, maybe Syria and Egypt, right? But really, we think of them as the Ajam, but Persian, descendant Ajam, right? We won't think of African Hanafis. Usually we just think of Maliki Hanafis, Maliki Africans or Shafi Africans.
Thanks. I want to bring in Reynaldo Anderson, if we can, please. You had your hand up. I don't know whether you still. You seem
yes,
to.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Reynaldo. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for this very informative presentation today. The last few years over here, I know I'm the co-editor of a book we put out called Afro-Futurism 2.0 a few years ago. And I know one of the scholars did a chapter looking at Black liberation theology in relation to Afro-Futurism, and he did it very effectively. And I was wondering, some of what you talked to me, I said, oh, okay, so this would look like, I guess, if Blacks in Islam did the same thing. Because right now, the focus in Afrofuturism scholarship is probably more done by people that are interested in African traditional religions, or some that they've definitely not involved with white Christianity anymore, and some are secular. And so I would just say people that are Muslim, and we've have Muslims that come to our events, but they're kind of more towards the secular side of it. And so what you kind of outlined, I could see now where a liberation theology for Black or African Muslims would definitely be a part of Afrofuturism. Even though Afrofuturism tends not to focus so much on the Abrahamic faith traditions. So hopefully one of the Muslim scholars, whether they're from England or maybe, I know in our second volume, The Black Speculative Art Movement, we had a Senegalese brother put a chapter in the book, but he did not deal so much with religion, but he did it on Afro-Futurism. So hopefully we'll see some more scholarship coming from Black Muslims engaging where Afro-Futurism is now in terms of where it's headed at the moment. Because even now, more recently, even a couple of people of African descent that are into Buddhism are they've been thinking about it. So, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. You helped fill in some gaps.
We really value your contribution, Brother Ronaldo. Taj, over to you.
No, I've just taken down Ronaldo's name, right? And also the book that he said is Afro-Futurism 2.0. I really appreciate that because look, we're just dabbling into this stuff at the moment. We're really just trying to understand. Look, if there is a possibility, what I was trying to say, Ronaldo, also as well, to look, those of you who are already Muslim from the Muslim tradition, there was a Black Mahdi, right? And the Azhari ulama says, you know what, we shouldn't dismiss his claim of being the Mahdi, right? So, you know, and also he's claiming to be the Sayyid. He's Black, and he's also saying, look, I'm a descendant of the Prophet. And obviously, look, he's someone who's from one of the great Sufi traditions of Sudan, the Samaniya, or an offshoot of the Samaniya. And yeah, so this is what I'm trying to understand as Islamic Afrofuturism is the fact that we do have instances in our own history where Danfodia and many of the others actually are saviors, in a sense, are saviors of the Ummah, to use Nadwi's words, saviors of the Islamic spirit.
I would also hasten to add that like over here, when this current wave that we got started over here, we get a lot of interest from brothers that are members of the Moorish Science Temple from that tradition. But I understand that sometimes because of sectarianism, certain groups don't recognize each other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and of course, for example, in the current wave of Afrofuturism, Malcolm X is seen as more of an Afrofuturist than Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
So, so you know, so I'm sure as a younger generation of scholars gets involved with it, I'm sure they'll figure out their space in it because of and see where it goes. But definitely, I would recommend people. The book came out at the end of 2015, Afrofuturism 2.0 and the Rise of Astro-Blackness. And so we haven't necessarily thought of Astro-Blackness as part of the Ummah. I think the Ummah, I hope I'm not mispronouncing it. So yeah, so you've given me some interesting things to think about. And actually, it was a Black, British, Nigerian woman that helped us get our manifesto out that launched the second wave of Afrofuturism the last few years with the Afrofutures UK conference that was in Manchester a few years ago. And so there have been Black Brits that have been a part. And when we had a function a couple years ago in Manchester with Afroflux. And so the current wave of Afrofuturism is kind of very Garveyite, you know, in terms of how it's spreading around the world and in terms of the countries that it's operating in now. But if you want to see a blueprint that can kind of see how we're using it in relation to religion, it's the chapter done by Andrew Rollins on that looks at Afrofuturism with the Black church. But as of yet, no one has done a definitive piece on Afrofuturism and the Black Ummah or the Black Islamic tradition.
Thanks very much, Brother Ronaldo. Can I bring in Wadud Ali? There's a question from Wadud Ali, I think. Go ahead, Wadud. If you're still there. Is Wadud there?
Assalamu
Oh, right.
alaikum. Yeah, so Assalamu alaikum, Tadsasa, how are you?
Yeah,
Sasa. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a question. I was gonna say, what can we do to engage, rather open the door for this kind of dialogue on a mainstream and universal scale?
Cool. Could I actually ask Dr. Sheikh, because you did have a plan of speaking about this, didn't you, at the end?
Okay, so yeah, I will make sure we have some time for that, Wadud. Is that okay?
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
the
yeah.
next steps? Yeah,
Next step,
certainly.
the next step
We-
stuff, Mustafa will talk about.
We will talk about. Can I bring in Bilal and also Dawood? We had an animated discussion that went on yesterday until about 1 a.m. in preparation for this. You kept me up long hours last night and promised me that you'd be making a contribution today. Don't let me down now. Dawood.
All right. Now, I try to make my thing brief. You know what I'm like, because we can rumble and rumble, but when we rumble behind, we got to rumble in the training, baby, not on the stage. But just to show a few things, these are a few books I've had all my life. Just to show you a few things of research. These are early years, right? And I know probably that brother Ronaldo know African presence in early Europe, right? Archaeological and empirical research, artifacts, everything. Now we got this one here, Forgotten Roots. This is like a little, I know you probably remember this, Mustafa, man. Tajal, I know, and Bilal's got this. This is a beautiful one. This guy that didn't want to come back to the UK no more. I'm just showing you, my rebel nature. This guy, Khalid al-Mansour, The Reflections of an African Arab in American Captivity, Khalid al-Mansour. And of course, I've got plenty more, but just a few of this picked up quickly. Deeper Roots, Dr. Abdullah King Quick, right? Again, the point I'm trying to say is this. It is a crime. It is a crime for somebody to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Anybody that says these things, and they wear the badge, and you see oppression with anybody on earth, you see oppression and you don't challenge it, you better reflect on the claim you make. Reflect on that claim. Mustafa, Tajul, may Allah protect y'all, and may we protect y'all, man. If anybody want to come that little BS, may we protect you too. Because we have to protect empirical knowledge. We have to protect. Right.
That's a warning to the rest of you, yeah?
We have to protect it. And you know what? Islam change is a strange thing, or return is a strange thing, glad tidings to the strangers. At the end of the day, we was talking last night, and I won't keep it, I swear I won't, I'm just gonna make a few points. Mustafa's laughing, I know. We'll do the boxing later. But the point I'm trying to say is this. As Dr. Tajul, my teacher, one of my teachers, look at that, I'm happy to say, and of course, Tajul, you're a black man, my brother, you're Dravidian blood. If anybody ain't seen Tajul,
well, the Habashis did rule over Bengal.
You're lucky, man. See, Malik Ambar, man, big up, gunshot, salute. May Allah increase him. The point I'm trying to say is, and of course, his story is amazing. He was a slave. The parents, as we know, his parents, really, they couldn't afford him. They had to sell him. So it's amazing of what he became, as we know, if we read the story, the true story. But the point I'm trying to say is this, man. If you've seen Tajul's brother, 6'4", man, that man's blacker than me. He's got y'all hair. He ain't got.
I'm sure you can be proud.
6'4", darker than what? That gene's there. But the point I'm trying to say is this, man. Regardless, look at that. Me and these brothers born because why? They about the truth. Not controlled narrative where you actually get some type of, religious psychosis. And that's what I call it these days. A lot of Muslims have religious psychosis because they're not themselves. Because unfortunately, during our time, and we're kind of coming out of it a little bit with brothers like yourself and the brothers in the United States, Bilal Ware, Sherman Jackson, all of my brothers salute because they're doing the same work, Dawood Waleed, in the sense of enlightening Muslims. Y'all need to come out of this black is crazy stuff, man. Y'all need to come out of this stuff. You know what I mean? And just to tie it in, so now I'm listening to Tajul. There's one thing I wanted him to challenge, though, is, of course, we're looking at collectives during the periods of Islamic rule and preceding the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Khalifa Rashidun. We've seen what was happening. But we have to address, they were targeting black folks from East Africa at that point under some very strenuous conditions. Yes, we know about chattel slavery, but we came into this thing and Muslims ain't trying to have no dialogue with us of why things are like they are, right? And everything was hidden. And I'll quote, mid-90s, there's no book with a hadith saying Isa salatu wasalam was shadid al-udma. There's no book. There ain't none. They couldn't deny Musa though, because everybody know about Musa salatu wasalam. But the point I'm trying to say is the people that's been oppressed went through some genocidal activity and their offspring have survived and they have been stereotyped and just their skin color people get upset due to the way that society has grafted this imagery of us. And for somebody in a faith that they profess from their lips and they don't try to support them or help them understand who they are, but take them. And when you come into Islam and you see black people, he's behind Algerians, he's behind Pakistanis, he's behind Arabs, he's behind, and all of them that come in, they leave the masjid and just say hi and continue. And then they go to a little gathering and then they're having a discussion and he's the token there. Are you okay? I know many people have been through that, but it's a humbling experience. But
I would, they're valuable words.
Well, I'm finished now. Don't worry, because I'm coming up. But for what you brothers have brought to us is beautiful. And one thing, Tajul, I want you to say, like for me, I love it, but for one reason. I can understand it and embody it, but for one reason. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed me to do theology first. To understand. As far as our basis to understand Islam, and not to be extremists on either side. We need to understand theology and the way we live. Because just to have this and still not understand basically your theological standpoint as far as your faith and your beliefs and how you conduct yourself, it could be damaging. It could be damaging. So I just want to say how important it is for theology, because
I'll keep that, Dawood. When I introduce the follow-up that we're going to talk about shortly, I will certainly link it to what you're saying there, and I know you're going to be part of what I introduce as well, and there are going to be opportunities for you to for others to benefit from you as much as from others, Dawood. So Jazakallah khair. Can I bring in Brother Nathaniel? There's a question from Nathaniel.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Feel free to put your camera on if you have the facility. Don't worry if you can't.
I will do. I'm just transitioning indoors. But I just first want to give thanks to our doctor who presented and to send my apologies for my lateness. Let me see if I can get my camera on. Yeah, I'm based in London, and so this coming together is becoming quite familiar with regards to, what can I say, melanated people, and to give thanks to the brother that spoke just previous, because, or the two brothers that spoke just previous, because my question was quite simple, which is what was the doctor's probably next steps for himself, and in taking this further. And I just say straight up, I'm I'm a revolutionist, you know, active in the community. I'm part of the All Africans People's Revolutionary Party, part of the Stop the Mangamizi campaign on reparations here in the UK, part of Galaxy Afui, which is just a local African community station, been going for about 40 years. And my thing is similar to not the brother that spoke but the previous one, which is the next steps, basically. How do we stand in solidarity? It's an overstatement now, as we're starting to realize, and many for decades, that people of African descent, you know, Euro-melanated people have been involved in every ethnic group, almost, or we could say. So what could be the simple process to bring more solidarity? And just to land, I guess, from what the brother from United Snakes was talking about, it seemed that there's a particular phrase that is said, and if you don't hold up to that phrase in Arabic, and then you're not, you know, being sacred and true to the faith. So it's something to do with that tied in, and I'll land there. Give thanks again. Okay,
thank you very much, Nathaniel. Taj, your response?
Well, you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution itself, right? So well done to the brother for really dealing with such issues. I mean, look, I haven't come across someone who actually has argued about reparations. The first time I'm meeting someone like this. So, yeah, look, we, in whatever ways we can contribute, right, to the struggle. Look, we'll try our best. Look, you can probably say I'm a latecomer to a lot of this. Look, I'm learning as well. So, you know, this is something the Muslims, you know, really at the moment, the Ummah itself has to understand that we have to be part of this movement, and to frame it in. There was
there were a couple of questions in the chat box. Can I present those to you? Are you okay there? Yeah. There was something. Was there something on your mind? Were you going to say something before?
No.
Are you all right? Okay. There's a question about. Go ahead. Sorry, Nathaniel. Yeah.
I do apologize. I just wanted to respond to ask. First step is this going to be available for other people to watch? Will it be on YouTube or Facebook or something? Because I think this is a real lessons learned. And quite directly put into Dr. Tajul, is there any way of just being able to get how we can get in contact? Because I think the most blatant way is to stand in solidarity and share, you know, platforms where we have the same like mind, which is ending white terrorism, and some call it white supremacy, but you know. So is there this video going to be out, and is it possible to get contacts so we can build that solidarity?
Okay, shall I respond, Taj?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So fine. Okay, at this point then, we can talk about what our follow-up plans are. So this talk really is meant to launch what we're calling readings in Black Muslim liberation theology, where what we want to set up a critical reading group that should meet or will meet once a month. It should have a core. It will be led by a core group. Among them will be some of the brothers that you've heard today, selecting key texts. They could be in theology, they could be in history, they could be in various fields, and the group gather to meet around those texts and to discuss those. So we're going to be launching that very soon, I'm going to put in the chat box where you'll find more on that, or as soon as that is launched, we'll be announcing that on our center website. So you can follow, if you follow the center website, this talk, I need to check over it. Daj will need to check over it and see what the quality is like. If it's good enough, we'll make it available. You know, we'll have to look at that, but inshallah, you know, certainly our plan is to make it available. So
I just make a call out. We do actually have royalty amongst us.
We do. Go ahead.
Usman Dan Fodio's great granddaughter is amongst us.
Can we give her the mic?
Zainab, you still there?
Is Zainab still there?
Yes.
Zainab, Bismillah, grace us.
Right. How do you feel? We've been talking about your grandfather. If we said anything wrong, we apologize, yeah?
No, you shouldn't.
Usman Dan Fodio's.
It was, I have to say, it was very informative. Thank you so much, Dr. Taj, for bringing this up. Because of, I don't know, I've always felt as a Muslim, it's our ummah, as a Muslim ummah, but I've always felt like a second-class citizen as a Muslim, because it's not, people don't bring this up, the greatness of what has been done by our society, especially back in Africa, in Nigeria, the Mansa Musas, the Sokoto Caliphate and everything. So it's actually very good. Thank you so much for bringing this up and doing this.
How do you feel about Sheikhuna Usman Dan Fodio? Your grandfather's.
Well, I don't know, like everyone else, I guess.
Jazakallah khair.
Mashallah. Zainab is one of our very best, mashallah, true seeker of knowledge. And it's an honor to have Zainab among us, mashallah. There was a question, Taj, in the text box. Can you expand a little on Bilal radiallahu anhu's association with the Ibadis? And it's especially their Khariji orientation, or the egalitarian politics.
Look, in all honesty, look, a lot of zulm has been done against the Khawarij in that sense. Look, we know from the Sirah sources and the Hadith sources that there were three groups of Muslims: Shiat al-Khawarij, Shiat Ali, and Shiat Muawiyah. Now the Khawarij there were companions amongst them. There's Harqub ibn Rasid was one of them. We tend to really marginalize their history because we think that they were like the Tabi'in. They weren't. They were actually, many of them were companions. We know, we read upon them that some of them actually, well, what stake do they have in Banu Hashim being put forward? Yep. Or, Al-A'immatu min Quraysh, just generally the whole Qurayshi argument of the Umayyads. The thing is, what we find is this: they use this, the Khawarij later on throughout the history. They used to say, "Walau abdan habashiyan," even if it's an Abyssinian slave, "Walau abdan," or just "Walau abdan" if it's a slave. And so that's something that we do see amongst the Khawarij. And another thing about the Khawarij we have to understand: there's two things about them. They are very Sunni insofar as Abu Bakr and Umar, Shaykhain, and they're very Shia insofar as Imam Ali, right? They don't like Muawiyah, or they're quite clear about this. Now, one of the things that they did find resonance is with Hazrat Bilal, because of the whole, if you like, the symbol of the Abdul Habashi, and the best Abdul Habashi that they could think of was Sayyidina Bilal. That's what I mean by the Bilal symbolism amongst the Ibadi sect. And they've got in Sheikh Warjilani's books as well, you find this Nuruddin Salami, and even some of the contemporary Mufti Khalili and others as well, deal with Bilal as one of those one of the most significant companions. And in terms of egalitarian politics, look, they've the fact that you don't need to be Bani Hashim or Bani or Qurashi to be the emirs or the caliphs of the Muslims. That's one thing that even political Islamism really has to focus on Khariji politics rather than just Shi'i or Sunni. For that matter, Imam Hassan al-Banna, Maulana Maududi, whoever else. I mean, this is the reason why so many of the other ulamas, the Ubandis, have an issue with Khilafat and-Mulkiyat, is because the style of the critique itself is very Khariji. Right.
Raj, we've got a question on the term Zanj.
Yeah.
Zanji has only recently become a racial slur. prior to that it was describing a people. Do you agree with me?
The thing is, Zanj was a slur no matter what, even if it was racist or not, because of they were seen as rebels. So, but not everybody who's black is necessarily Zanj. So the idea of blackness itself wasn't something which was given to people of Africa.
Yeah,
Or
I
elsewhere.
think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, from my own studies, I don't recall any classical or early works on Fadail Zunuj.
Yeah, no, there isn't.
Fadail Hubush. Okay,
Yeah,
so that I can see.
Fadail Sudan as well, but not Zunuj.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Because Zanj is from Zangistan, is from Persia,
Yeah.
that region in the south of Iran and Iraq.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any final questions? I wonder, Bilal,
I got one thing. I got one thing that I want you guys to actually speak about. Just right, the aspect of Lisan al-Arab and the aspect of what a real Arab is in the sense of Arab culture, right? Because of course, people like Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, may Allah be pleased with them both. They both had ancestry on their mother's side that was from Abyssinian lineage. So people need to understand that because, you know, because the father's an Arab of that region, they're Arab, they don't talk about the other part. So we need, could you just bring some clarity about that, please? As far as genealogy in the Arab region.
Mustafa, do you want to or shall I?
Go ahead, Taj. Can you hear me?
The thing is this, look, it's very important, Dawood, what you just raised there. Look, both the Jewish tradition and the Muslim tradition have an argument in terms of how you establish your lineage. So generally speaking, in rabbinical Judaism, insanu min ummihi, right? So a person is from it's matrilineal, it's from the mother. But the Karaites in Ethiopia was from the fathers. So the Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews, is actually, if your father's Jewish, then you're Jewish. Amongst Muslims, generally, al-insanu min qawmi abihi. So we do have a qawaid fiqhiyya. So you are from the from the people if your father is from that person, and except for the Ahlul Bayt, that's the only time is through Fatima that we claim to be from the Ahlul Bayt. Now, what you just said there, Bilal, is important. A lot of those Dawood, sorry, when you were in Sudan, many of them are actually descendants of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right? Because Abu Bakr married into either into that region or his family married into that region. So it's a case of look, that's where you get the Arabs really do. What color are the Arabs? Well, the Arabs can be black largely, and then later on we know the Ahlul Bayt themselves. Look, the original Ahlul Bayt was clear from the books their color. But then afterwards, Hassan Askari and others, right, we can see that they're marrying into the Persian royalty, into the Yazid family. And from there, you could say, that, and obviously you've got Indian Arabs as well, right? You've got, Arab Nasl throughout the Muslim world. But yes, right, it's through the father's lineage, and many of these prominent companions. If we were to speak phenotypically, then they would be what we now consider black. But maybe, look, I'm saying this, Dawood, with a bit of a caveat, that it could be that we're revising and projecting backwards. So we have to be a bit careful about that. But nonetheless, look, I'm saying it, well, if we're reading the Shama'il literature, if we're reading, the A'immat Ahlul Bayt stuff, from Sunnis and from the Shias as well, it's there that, what the early Ahlul Bayt, peoples looked like.
All right, I'm going to disagree with Taj. I say project back all that you want. Can I ask Bilal to come in just to close, please, today's session, as I think we've reached the point now, 8:30, at which we should be closing.
That went quick though, man. Alhamdulillah, bro. Fantastic, mashallah. We made some nice contributions there. It's been a nice discussion. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time out as well. Obviously, Dr. Taj, Mustafa Sheikh, Dr. Mustafa Sheikh, Dr. Haroon, all the people that have been involved from, what I would say the beginning in terms of, because we're going back a few years now, and mashallah, Roland and all the people that have made contributions and listening, you know what? May Allah bless you all for attending. And, this spirit of this movement, keep this spirit kindled, because there's so much out there which is basically facing the obstacle for you to, extinguish that flame. But you got to keep that flame burning. And alhamdulillah, follow-up sessions, we pray and we ask that this is something that's going to be done easily, because the momentum is with it. The momentum is with it now. And I believe that through all these, especially in the UK and, across the water, I've seen many scholars now putting their necks on the line and coming up. It's like we've learned how to read again. We can go to the direct sources and we can see directly where we've been misquoted, or where we've been embellished. So we thank Allah for that. And I pray that, at this moment in time, whatever our feelings are on the situation, what's going on through the world right now, that we all keep safe and we all keep protected. And, I want to say, Allah protect our doctors and our nurses that are in the middle of this this thing what's going on right now. So I want everybody to keep themselves safe, and inshallah, God willing, we'll meet again sometime soon in the future. So Allah bless you all, bless this gathering, and keep the faith. Assalamu alaikum.